parents are still alive. My parents are still alive. My parents are still alive. My parents are still alive.
As Amina left her village, the place she had called home for so long, her heart was a mix of emotions. Her silver hair flowed behind her, catching the last rays of the setting sun, making her look like a glowing beacon of light as she ventured into the unknown. The world outside the village was vast and mysterious. For the first time, Amina felt the thrill of freedom and adventure, yet deep inside, she carried the weight of the past. She had spent her whole life in that village, where everyone looked to her for guidance because of her special gift, the visions that came with her glowing silver hair. But now, her journey was different. It wasn't just about finding herself or experiencing the world. In the quiet moments of her travels, Amina couldn't shake the feeling that her story wasn't complete. She often thought about her parents, the ones she had lost to the terrible storm years ago, and how much she wished they could see the woman she had become. The days passed quickly, and Amina saw more of the world than she had ever dreamed. She crossed vast deserts, met kind strangers who shared their stories with her, and saw cities bustling with life. But despite all the wonders around her, she felt a nagging emptiness. Something was missing. And then, one night, it happened. Amina was sitting under the stars, her silver hair spread around her like a halo, when a powerful vision overtook her. Her hair began to glow brighter than the stars themselves, and in her mind, she saw something that made her heart stop: her parents. They were not
My parents are
as
still
she had
alive.
believed all these
My
years.
parents are still alive.
Her father, Okechukwu, was blind, groping his way through a dark forest with a wooden stick, while her mother, Ifunanya, limped beside him. Amina's heart ached as she saw the deep injury on her mother's leg. They had been trying to return to her but had been lost, trapped in a distant land. The vision was so vivid, so real, that Amina felt she could reach out and touch them. She saw the pain and struggle in their faces, and tears filled her eyes. Her parents were alive, but they were suffering. They had survived the storm that had nearly destroyed their village, but they had never made it home. When the vision faded, Amina knew what she had to do. Her parents needed her, and she would stop at nothing to bring them home. She gathered her belongings and set off, following the clues the vision had given her. Her journey, which had started as a personal quest for discovery, had now become a race to find her family and reunite them. For days, Amina traveled through dense forests, across rivers, and over mountains. Her silver hair, glowing softly in the dark, guided her through the wilderness like a lantern. She faced many challenges along the way, but she pressed on, driven by the image of her parents struggling to survive. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Amina arrived in a remote village nestled in the mountains. It was a quiet, peaceful place, and yet Amina's heart raced with anticipation. She knew this was where her parents were. As she walked through the village, the people stared at her in awe. They had never seen anyone like her, with hair that shimmered like the stars. But Amina didn't notice their stares. Her mind was focused on the small hut at the edge of the village, the hut from her vision. Her heart pounded as she approached the door, her hands trembling. With a deep breath, she knocked. There was no answer, so she slowly pushed the door open. Inside, the scene she had seen in her vision was unfolding before her. Her father, Okechukwu, was sitting near the fire, carving a piece of wood with his hands, while her mother, Ifunanya, sat beside him, her leg wrapped in old bandages. Mother. Father. Amina's voice trembled as she stepped into the room. Okechukwu turned his blind eyes toward her, and Ifunanya gasped, dropping the piece of cloth she had been holding. "Amina," she whispered, her voice filled with disbelief. "Is it really you?" Amina rushed to her mother's side, tears streaming down her face. "Yes, Mother, it's me. I found you." Ifunanya pulled her daughter into a tight embrace, her body shaking with sobs. "We thought we had lost you," she cried. "We tried to come home, but the storm took everything from us." Okechukwu, hearing the sound of his daughter's voice, reached out blindly. Amina took his hand, guiding it to her face. "Father, I'm here," she whispered, her heart full of emotion. Okechukwu's voice was choked with tears. "We tried, Amina. We tried to come back, but I was blinded by the storm. Your mother was hurt trying to save the children trapped in the flood. We were lost, and we couldn't find our way home." Amina's heart ached as she listened to their story. Her mother's leg had been injured by a sharp piece of wood in the floodwaters, and her father's sight had been taken by the violent winds and rain. They had been rescued by the people of this small village, who had cared for them all these years. "I knew you were alive," Amina said softly, her silver hair glowing as she spoke. "My visions led me to you." For several days, Amina stayed in the village, helping her parents regain their strength. She told them of her adventures, of the people she had met, and of the vision that had guided her to them. Her silver hair seemed to glow brighter than ever, as if it was feeding on the love she felt for her family. But Amina knew that their journey wasn't over. Her parents needed to return to their village, where they belonged. It wouldn't be easy. Her mother's leg was still weak, and her father's blindness made it hard for him to walk, but together, they would make the journey home. As they approached the village, the news of their return spread like wildfire. The villagers gathered at the entrance, their faces filled with shock and joy. Some had thought they would never see Okechukwu and Ifunanya again. But here they were, alive and standing before them. Baba, Amina's grandfather, stood at the front of the crowd, tears streaming down his face. "My daughter. My son," he cried, his voice breaking with emotion as he ran forward to embrace them. "I thought I had lost you forever." The village erupted in celebration, welcoming Okechukwu and Ifunanya back with open arms. For days, they rejoiced in the return of the family they thought they had lost. Amina felt a deep sense of peace as she stood with her family, her heart full of love and joy. But the surprises weren't over yet. The village elders, moved by Amina's strength and the miraculous return of her parents, gathered to discuss what would come next. They had seen the wisdom and courage in Okechukwu, despite his blindness, and they knew that he was a natural leader. During a grand ceremony in the village square, Chief Duro, who had once doubted Amina's visions, stood before the villagers. "Okechukwu," he said, his voice solemn, "your courage and strength have brought you back to us. We honor you today, and we ask that you lead this village, with the wisdom that has guided you through these dark times." The villagers erupted in cheers as Okechukwu was crowned the leader of the village. Though he could not see the crown that was placed on his head, he felt its weight and the love of the people who had supported him. Amina stood beside him, her heart swelling with pride. Baba, who had feared he would never see his daughter again, looked at Amina with eyes filled with pride and joy. "You've brought our family back together," he said, his voice trembling. "You've shown us all that no matter how far we are from home, we can always find our way back. The village thrived under Okechukwu's leadership, and Amina continued to use her visions to protect and guide her people. Her silver hair, once seen as strange and otherworldly, was now a symbol of hope and strength, a reminder that even in the darkest of times, there was always light. Through her journey, Amina had not only reunited her family, but she had also found her true place in the world. Surrounded by the love of her family and the support of her people, she knew that whatever challenges the future held, she would face them with courage and hope. The storm that had once torn her family apart had ultimately brought them back together, stronger and more united than ever before. And Amina, with her glowing silver hair, had become the guardian and protector of the people she loved, ready to face whatever came next.